Welcome back. For women, maintaining good health and vitality as we age requires a proactive approach when it comes to our physical and mental well-being.
Joining us now to explain is nurse practitioner and the author of the award-winning book, Create the Vitality You Crave, Epigenetics 101 to Unlock Your Healing Power, Lori Finley. Lori, it is always such a pleasure to see you.
Thank you. It's really wonderful to be back here at Bloom.
And so we're excited to talk finally about women's vitality, because so often the studies are surrounded by men and men's health, and now finally we've got a shot at vitality.
Right. Well, you know, for decades we've seen that they've kind of put women aside because we have a cycle. Well, that's too complicated, and you know, it's kind of like the placebo effect, just too complicated. And that's what's really fascinating and exciting to see when we take our cycles into it, how it impacts what we should be doing.
And so often, I think women are told, oh, that's just in your genes. Your mother had this, your grandmother had this. But epigenetics, it's fascinating. Can you kind of tell us what exactly that is?
Yes. First of all, I love what MD Anderson Cancer Center said almost 20 years ago. You know, when they said that only 5 to 10% of our chronic disease is caused by our genes. The rest of it is caused by our diet and lifestyle, whether it's the toxic people we hang out with, or our toxic thoughts, or the food, or water, or air. All of those things will impact the expression of our genes. So we've got the wiring, but I like to use the example of a keyboard or a big grand piano. We've got the wiring, that's our genes, that's there, that's static, but it's the expression of that is determined on an outside force, right? The diet, the exercise.
Now, even if you're predisposed, like my family's predisposed to heart disease, or at least that's what a DNA report showed me.
Right.
There are still things that you can do to, you know, lessen the risk of developing it, right?
Yes, that's what's so exciting. All of a sudden you become empowered and the driver in your own health moving forward. My birth mother died at the age of 25.
Wow.
And I finally found, I mean, I had assumed as I was studying for years trying to understand, and then I got my DNA test done. And several of my siblings and nieces and nephews were all missing a gene, like the longevity gene, the whole important glutathione, important detoxing gene. And yet there's things that I can do to support all of that in my body. So avoiding certain things or supplementing with certain things can give you back your power.
That is so empowering to know that we can control our own destiny. What are some tips that you have on ways that we can have ourselves to the best, highest potential and maybe reverse some of these doom dates that we think that we had?
That's an awesome question. You know, biohacking is a big thing out there in the world. Most people don't understand what that is, or they think it's just for the rich and famous. And you've got to have a hyperbaric chamber, and you've got to have an infrared sauna, but there's all kinds of things that you can do every day on your own. Just basic breathing, right? Good breathing. Clean air, clean filtered air is really important. Clean filtered water and having plenty of it with lots of electrolytes is very important to optimize your body, your function, your expression, your genetic expression. Even looking at, carefully examining, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? Because according to the brilliant Dr. Bruce Lipton, our thoughts can actually change our biochemistry, which can then change the expression of our genes.
That is incredible. I mean, we've heard often like neuroplasticity.
Right.
It rewires our brain, these negative thoughts. And we're living in a world right now that's like polar opposites. Everybody's freaking out about everything. That's not good for our health.
It's not. Dr. Candace Pert, who wrote the book Molecules of Motion, was the first one to identify and say that our emotions are coded on our DNA. And then they're passed down from generations. So it's important for us to even do that generational healing work, right? For not only our own health, but for our posterity. But when we get rid of all of these toxins, then we've got a better chance for optimizing our gene expression.
Now, when you talk about this, is there a test that we should have as a baseline so we know, or are these tips good for everyone?
They're good for everyone. And I've got, you know, a free document that you can share with your viewers today that will give them some basic free things that they can do at home. And I still encourage everyone to get a DNA test done.
Yeah.
I used to use one from Australia. I now recommend the DNA company. They've got an exquisite app, and anyone can get a lot of really great information.
Real quick, give us some takeaways from your new book and workbook.
Well, my new workbook goes into a lot more details on the book, each chapter, and how to implement these changes. You know, I remember writing prescriptions on a prescription pad, and you hope that they will implement them. And that's often the biggest challenge, is where do I begin?
Yes.
Well, the workbook was actually intended and written for, designed for all adult 8 learning styles. So that whatever will help you integrate the incredible material that's in the first book, the award-winning book, now you can actually implement it in a way in your life to change your health.
I love this, Lori. Congratulations
Yes.
on
Thank you.
the addendum here with the workbook and the book itself. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's really a privilege.
We really appreciate it. We're going to share Lori's advice on Bloom Tampa Bay.
And now it's time for today's Bloom trivia question. True or false? Your epigenetics change as you age.
Stick around to find out the answer. That's coming up later on Bloom.